Hello everyone, welcome back to the System of Functional Linguistic playlist in my channel. And today we discuss modality system, the second system in system of functional grammar, in analyzing interpersonal meaning after the mood system. Okay, so these are what we are going to cover in this video. The first one, we will very briefly revisit the mood system that we have discussed in the previous video, and then we will see what the modality is, what it means, okay, and then we will look at the modality system itself. It will include the types of modality, orientations of modality, values of modality, and the polarities of modality. I also provide you with some examples uh, to help you see how we use the modality system to analyze the modal meaning in the clauses. Okay, but in this video, I will not present you with those examples. You can check the link in the video description below. And at the end of this video, we will conclude our discussion in this video. Okay, let's start it. I do hope that you still remember the mood system, and but now we will have a very brief revisit of what the mood system is and the function of mood system. So as you can see here, the mood system is the first system in systemic functional linguistics that we can use to analyze the interpersonal meaning in the clause. And the interpersonal meaning in terms of the mood system covers the type of interaction, or what we call the speech roles, which defines the speaker's role, whether the speaker is giving or demanding the commodity being exchanged through the interaction, which are uh, the information or the goods and services. Okay, so that is what interpersonal meaning. And the type of interaction, or what we call the speech functions, cover question, statement, comment, and over. If you still remember our discussion in the last video, question and statements are associated with the exchanging of information, where the question is used to ask or to demand information, and while statement is used to give the information being demanded. Meanwhile, command and over are associated with the exchanging of mm, goods and services. Okay? And where command is used to demand goods and services, demanding action, while over, uh, yeah, as the term suggests, it offers or it gives or provides uh, actions or goods and services. And the mode system helps us to identify the type of interaction, which is based on the mood structure. And if you still remember, again, the mood structure, I'm sorry, consists of subject and finite, and also the polarity. Okay, so when the mood structure, the structure of subject and finite, uh, begins with the subject and then followed by a finite, then or vice versa, then it uh, tells us the type of interaction realized in the clause. Now, after we understood what the mood system is and its functions, now in this video we talk about the modality. Okay, so we begin with the question: what is modality? In systemic functional linguistics, the modality is understood as the language resource used to configure the speaker's judgment on the status of what is being said. Of course, although it is written the speakers here, but it also covers the writers. Okay, the writer's judgment. Okay, when we talk about modality, we need to think about the finite, which is in the mood block when we talk about mood system. So, in the mood system, we identify the polarity of the mood of the clause as a whole based on the existence of the negator or the absence of the negator. If the negator is present and then it is a negative clause. But modality is not as finite as a mood. Okay, so it is between the positive and negative polarities. Okay, it is not. I mean, each modality shows the level of finiteness of the judgment, attitude, or proposition or proposal. Okay, uh, and it can be expressed by many sources, language resources like modal verbs, adjuncts, uh, include the mood adjunct and comment adjunct, we will see later, lexical verbs and nouns, adjectives, and so on. Okay, modality can also be expressed in terms of a projective clause. If you still remember our discussion about the range scale, especially when we talk about the uh, clause complex. Okay, let's take a look at these examples. The first example is a positive clause because there is no negator there, okay, and it is definitely a yes. Okay, so we can see that the finite here can be understood as a yes. Feedback is useful. Okay, number one, the third example, feedback is not useful, is obviously a negative clause because of the presence of the negator not here. Okay? But when we talk about modality, the let's let's call this the content of these clauses are as proposition. Okay, the truth value of the um, clause or the content of the clause. Okay, when we say that feedback may be useful, it is neither definitely yes nor definitely no. Okay, so it is somewhere between yes and no. But in terms of polarity, we know that uh, this clause is a positive clause because the negator the negator is not there, is not present there in the clause. Okay, and if we add a negator, so it becomes feedback may not be useful. The clause as a whole is negative. But modality is not about polarity. Okay? It is about the modal meaning. It is not about the clause polarity as a whole, but just about the modal meaning. Okay? The level, the degree of the speaker's judgment, attitude, thoughts, opinions, beliefs, claims, and so on and so forth. So modality is, modality is that language resource used to configure. Configure means that it helps the speakers and the writers to choose between language resources to express the modality based on the given context. Alright, here it is written that modality can be expressed by uh, various language resources, or we can call them items. Okay? And these are some words in each item uh, by which modality or the modal meaning can be realized. The first one is by the modal finite or the modal verbs like may, might, will, would, shall, should, can, could, and so on and so forth. Okay, and the example here, for example, feedback may be important. Okay, we use the modal finite may, but it is not always that the speakers or writers use modal finite, because modality can also be realized through mood adjunct. Okay, adverbs like probably, yeah, surely, obviously, typically, generally, and so on and so forth are also used to realize or to express modal meaning. Like here, perhaps feedback is important. If you see here, this is a finite verb is, but because of this mood adjunct, the the polarity, the meaning, the modal meaning is not definitely yes. Okay, without this, perhaps, without this word, then this clause, the truth value or the proposition of this clause is a definite yes. Okay, but because of this word, perhaps, then the modal meaning here um, is between yes and no. Okay, current adjunct. There are some uh, examples here you can see here, like in general, strictly speaking, honestly, thankfully, surprisingly. They are also used to realize the mood meanings or the modal meaning. Like in general, feedback is important, which means that the speaker believes that at the particular or specific context, maybe feedback is not that important, but in general, feedback is important. Okay, so there is modal meaning here. Okay, which is realized by the comment adjunct in general or lexical verb. Okay, like think, believe, suppose, assume, and so on and so forth. They are in experiential meaning. They are included into um, mental processes. Okay, so the example like I think feedback is important. It is a it it shows the speaker's judgment about the feedback, personal judgment or evaluation about feedback, and it is realized not by the clause feedback is important, but it's like by it is realized by the clause I think. Okay, If you remember what I said just now, uh, modality can also be realized by projective clause, and this is the example. I think feedback is important. The second clause is the content or the projective clause of the main clause I think. Yeah. But modality can also be realized through nouns or nominal words. Okay? Words like possibility, probability, obligation, and so on and so forth also uh, represent the modal meaning, the speaker judgment, or attitude or stance. Yeah? Like it is a possibility that students never receive feedback. Okay, so it can be seen here that and there are and this is a clause complex. Okay, there are two clauses here. It is a possibility and students never receive feedback. Okay, so in this example, the first clause express the level of the certainty that the speaker holds in him about the fact that students never receive feedback. Okay, so it is a possibility means that yes, it is possible, but it is not a definite yes. Okay, it is not a definite no, but it is possible. So it's between a yes and no. Okay, okay, all right. And then the last one, modality can also be realized through adjectives. Like it is possible, yeah? Like it is a possibility. It uses nouns. This clause in this example, the speaker uses a noun, but it can also uh, be expressed by using a adjective. Like it is possible that the teacher never provides students with feedback. Okay? They share similar meaning in terms of the way the modal meaning is expressed or realized. Alright, and now the modality system. We have seen the modality, okay? And now we look at the modality system, the system to analyze the modality. So the modality system is a grammar system, systemic functional grammar especially, that describes how the speakers or writers configure their judgments or stances, like opinions, claims about what is being said or written. You can see here the system is depicted like this, and I took this from this book written by Halliday himself and Christian Matthiasson. If you look at here, the modality consists of type, orientation, value, and polarity. Okay, and then the modality type uh, consists of what we call modalization and other system functional linguistics is called epistemic modality and modulation or deontic modality. Orientation, in terms of orientation, modality can be either subjective or objective, and the subjective or objective modality uh, can be either explicit or implicit. And the value there are in general we can say that there are three values or degree of modality: low, medium, and high. Halliday uses the term median, but in other sources and in other SFL sources, it is called medium. Okay, and then polarity, positive and negative. Okay, but the polarity here uh, does not refer to the polarity of the clause, but the polarity of modality. Okay, and in this video we will look at these systems one by one, right? But what this system shows us. So the system shows us the network of choice. Okay, the network of choices that the speaker uh, use or make in expressing the modality. Okay, depending on the interpersonal meaning being created and the commodity being exchanged. Okay, for example, modality of modalization uh, consists of probability and usuality. Meanwhile, modulation or deontic modality uh, is divided into obligation and inclination. Probability and usuality, as we will see, is associated with the exchange of information, meanwhile the obligation and inclination or the modulation or the deontic modality is associated with the exchange of goods and services. In systemic functional grammar, modality is divided into two main types. They are the epistemic modality or modalization and the deontic modality or modulation. In general, they can be understood like these, written here. The epistemic modality is a modality which is concerned with the speaker's confidence in the truth of a proposition, the truth value of the clause, expressing the degree of probability whether something is or is not, and usuality whether something, yeah, the frequency of the happenings or the goings on an event, for example. So we can take a look at this example here. Immediate feedback must be important for students. In this clause, modal finite must is used here, and it it presents the speaker's confidence about the importance of immediate feedback. Okay, and this is an information. This is a statement, and it gives the information. Okay, about the importance of immediate feedback, but because in this class the speakers use a modal verb like must here, the modal meaning of this clause is an expression of the speaker's confidence or judgment or attitude toward the immediate feedback. Okay, and the second one is the deontic modality or modulation. Is a modality which is concerned with obligation and inclination. So it's about whether someone must or may do or will do something. Okay, so it is associated with the commodity of goods and services. We can take a look at this example here. You may submit your essay by email. Imagine that uh, this is uh, this is uttered by a teacher to to his or her student. Then this clause gives permission to students to submit his or her essay by using the most convenient means for him or her, and that modal meaning is realized through the use of the modal finite may here. Okay, so this is actually an over because it gives permission to students to choose the way to submit his or her essay. Okay, so what we can conclude here is that the epistemic modality um, is associated with the exchange of information. Okay, and meanwhile the deontic modality or modulation is associated with the exchange of goods and services. Now is the orientations of modality. Modality can be subjective. Okay, so if the modality expresses the judgment coming from the speaker, okay, then it is a subjective modality, like I think and uh, I believe and so on and so forth. But as we can see later in the examples, it is not confined only to the use of the personal pronoun I or we. The point here, the subjective modality represents the speaker's personal judgment. Okay. Meanwhile, the objective modality, uh, although it still express judgment, but the source of the judgment is from outside the speaker. Okay, and the uh, whether it is a subjective or objective modality, it can be explicit or implicit. So explicit modality is when the source of the judgment is clearly identified or is offered in the clause. Okay? And while the implicit modality is a modality, whether it is subjective or objective, where the source of the judgment is not directly stated. Okay, so what we can conclude here is that there are uh, two main categories, uh, the subjectivity and the explicitness. Okay, in terms of the subjectivity of the modality, uh, the modality can be either subjective or objective, depending on uh, where the source of the modality come uh, come from. Okay, and meanwhile from the explicitness, the modality can be either explicit or implicit, depending on whether the source is identifiable clearly in the clause. Alright, we can look at these examples. Okay, so in these examples we are presented with clauses in which the types and the orientations of clauses are combined together. Okay, like I am certain that students need feedback. This is an epistemic modality, subjective and explicit. Why? The first one is the about the types, the type of the modality. This clause is epistemic because it gives information. Okay, it is subjective because the source of this uh, the source of the modal meaning is the speaker himself. I am certain. Okay, and it is explicit because the source is clearly identified. This the I. Alright. The next one is this. Probably students need feedback. And this clause is the modality is still epistemic and still subjective, but the source of the modality is implicit. Okay? Probably students need feedback. When someone says this clause, utters this clause, he or she expresses his or her own judgment about the need, about the student's need of feedback. But here in this clause, the source uh, is not over, is not directly stated. Okay, and then the third one, scholars suggest that students always need feedback. This is still epistemic because the commodity being exchanged in this clause is still information. But the modality is objective because the speaker, uh, the speaker, uh, what we call it, I mean, the source of the modality, the source of the modal meaning comes out from outside the speaker, the person. Okay, in this case, the scholars. Okay, and in terms of orientation, this modality is also explicit because the source is clearly identified here, which is the scholars. And while here, uh, the users always receive feedback, still this is an information, an epistemic modality, and still objective because the source of the modal meaning is still outside the speakers. The speaker is talking about what the essays receive, okay? Usually received. That is the feedback, but it is implicit. The modality is implicit because the source of the modality is not stated. Okay? And then the deontic modality. Examples for deontic modality are here. We have deontic subjective explicit, like this. I will provide students with feedback as a deontic because this is an over. This is about what the I will do, which is the commodity being exchanged here is goods and services. And subjective, I, and explicit. The source of the modality is clearly stated, I. Yeah. And then the only subjective, implicit. Still the same. Probably students should get feedback on the drafts, but this one is implicit. So it doesn't mention I think students should get feedback like that. But arguably using this comment adjunct to express the implicit modality. So the source of modality, whose confidence it is, who believes that students should get feedback on their draft, is not clearly mentioned or stated in the clause. And the third one is the deontic objective explicit modality. It is explicit because the source of the modality um, is expressed here, which is the school policy, and the modality is expressed through the uh, lexical verb requires, which means that it is a must. Okay? It is something that the teachers must do. Okay? And this is deontic because it is about what the teachers must do. The last one is the deontic objective implicit modality. Okay, it seems that feedback must be provided. This passive clause is about uh, what must be provided, okay, which is the feedback, and it is objective because the source of the modalities come from what seems, okay, and it is implicit because the source of modality is not clearly stated. Okay, these are the examples of the types and orientations uh, of modality realized in clauses. And now, the third component of the modality system is the values or degrees. As you can see here, value refers to the strength of modal meaning. It tells us whether the speaker expresses a low, medium, or high degree of possibility. Possibility refers to the epistemic modality or obligation, which is associated with the deontic modality. And I will not read this one by one, this words one by one. You can pause the video and then you can take a look at the words model finite in the low category or low value or degree, medium and high. In the in these examples, we can see that we can take one example. Mm, Alright, we can take this one. It seems that feedback must be provided, so we can see that the model finite used here is must. Okay, and then we can check here that must is a high value modality or high degree modality. Okay, meanwhile, mm, here we can look at the second examples. The speaker uses the adjunct probably, and if we check here, probably is the medium mode adjunct, a mode adjunct to express the medium modality. So we can think that the verbs, the words used to express the modality uh, expresses the degree of the confidence, the degree of the obligation or inclination, whether something is highly probable or is uh, is not likely to happen or is not likely to be a possibility. So we can measure the degree or the strength of the modality by looking at the items or the language resources used by the speakers or writers in expressing their modal meaning. And then the last element in the modality system is the polarity. As I told you before, that the modality is between the positive and negative polarity. Okay, like you can see here. Okay, so modal polarity, this term refers to whether the modal assessment is the speaker's and writer's judgment about how likely, usual, desirable, or obligatory a situation is. Whether the model assessment is affirmed, definitely yes or positive, or denied, definitely no or negative. But unlike the clause polarity, modal polarity is concerned only with the polarity of the modal meaning and not the whole clause. Okay? So uh, polarity is also associated with the degree or values. As you can see here, must is at the top side and while may is at the bottom side, it means that between may, will, and must, uh, there is a different degree or value. May is low, will is medium, and must is higher. But they are between whether something is or is not, the positive and the negative. Okay? And they apply to uh, all types and subtypes of a modality. For example, in the modalization, because modalization has the subtypes, that is the probability and usuality. Some words like possibly, probably, certainly represents the polarity and the value of uh, the language resources used to express that probability. And it also applies to the usuality, obligation, and inclination. So uh, the mm, when the value of modality is high, then it becomes near to the positive polarity. And when it is low enough, and then it can be said that it is near to the negative polarity. But we need to remember that polarity modality is always between the yes and no. Okay, the speakers can slide up or down his confidence by choosing uh, the language resources or items to be used in his clause to express the most intended interpersonal meaning in terms of confidence, attitudes, stance about the proposition or the proposal. Alright, and now we can conclude what we have discussed in this video. The first one, so modality shows degree of probability or usuality, or what we call epistemic or modalization, and also obligation and inclination, or what we call deontic or motivation. Yeah, modality can be realized through modal verbs, modal adjuncts, and other language resources or items, as we can see, as we have seen, I mean, and it can also be subjective, objective, and it can also be either explicit or implicit. The value of modality tells us whether the speakers and writers investment, how much they invest in the clause. I mean, how confident they are when giving or demanding information or goods and service. Okay, uh, it can be low, medium, or high, and the polarity shows that the expressions can either be affirmed positive or denied negative. So the polarity is strongly associated with the values. Okay, the higher the modal modal meaning or the modality, then the more likely that the proposition or the proposal is affirmed. Okay, and the lower it is, then the more likely that it will be denied. Okay, and then the last one is the we can and this is the grand conclusion that modal choices shape the speaker's or writer's stance, level of commitment or level of investment, and the interpersonal relationship with the audience. Okay, alright, that's all we can hmm, discuss today regarding the modality system. Don't forget to take a look at the examples of analysis of classes using the modality system. Okay, and the link in the description below. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video, hopefully. Bye.